So do we really need more of these new fancy addresses, or do we need to invest more on what we already have? We have a panel with us. We have Mr. S.K. Das. He's Dean Academic Research, IIT Madras. He joins us from Madras at this point of time. In the studio, we have two young, very bright students who have their own opinion to give. We have Shantanu Chaudhary from IIT Delhi. With him is his friend Navratna Singh. He is also from the IIT Delhi. Directly, I'd like to cut across to Mr. Das at this point of time. Mr. Das, we already have so many institutes. We have 16 IITs already, some of them struggling in terms of infrastructure, struggling in terms of faculty. Do we really need new ones, or do we need to invest, or should we have invested in what we already have?
No audio.
All right, we seem to be having an audio problem with Mr. Das. We're going to try and reconnect that audio line. I'd like to bring in Shantanu, who's in the studio with us. Shantanu, what do you make of it? You're a student. You're the ones to answer this question best. Do you think we needed to maybe go back, look at our books, say we already have 16 of these IIT institutes. Some of them are struggling with faculty. Case in example, Mandi in Himachal, Jodhpur, where you have to fly in, teachers who teach you in Delhi, and they're the ones who go over, and hold classes and come back. So do you reckon maybe we should have looked at strengthening these institutes, because every year, I believe, over 100 seats go vacant in institutes like that?
Exactly. So these 100 seats are actually going vacant. That is just wastage of the institutes. And in my opinion, the existing IITs need to be developed. In fact, you can moreover work on the existing NITs to elevate their status. Some of the NITs are actually quite old, and they can actually provide what is the quality education as compared to the new IITs. And so I think the existing IITs, either they should be properly funded and their infrastructure should be made better. You can increase the seats in those existing IITs,
right,
but just opening new IITs is not the solution to the problem.
Well, his friend Navratna is also with us, who believes that if we actually look at opening more of these premier institutes, we're actually looking at diluting the brand which IITs and the IIMs has stood for. What do you make of it, Navratna? Do you want more colleges like that to be opened, or do you reckon what we have, we need to invest in those?
Yeah, I do believe that what we have, we need to invest in those. I'm pretty much scared about the brand dilution thing. I'm not against opening new elite institutes, but let's not call it IIT. The reason being the brand dilution.
Right.
What happens here is that the status of the new IITs is concerning. Seriously, the faculty is not up to the mark. The number of there are vacant seats in the faculty. Plus, most of the new IITs don't have their campus premises.
Right.
The classes
They're
are
struggling to
exactly.
Keep
They are struggling to keep. So it is diluting the brand image. Most of the people who clear JEE, they choose tier 2 or tier 3 colleges over the new IITs.
So what's the point of adding to something when already hundreds of seats are going vacant?
Exactly.
I'd like to, before we go down to our reporters, we have Manogya who's joining us from IIM Calcutta. We have Jugal Purohit, IIM Ahmedabad, and Priyamvada, IIT Chennai. I'd like to quote a reference to what Navratna here was just saying, that it's like you're trying to deal with poverty. Printing new notes will only lead to inflation. I'd like to directly cut across to Priyamvada, who's joining us in Chennai at this point of time. Priyamvada, what are you picking up from students in IIT Chennai? Now, IIT Chennai is one of the top IIT institutes of the country, but there are many others like Jodhpur IIT, like Mandi, Himachal Pradesh IIT, which till now are struggling with faculty, struggling with infrastructure.
Absolutely, Preeti. IIT Madras is one of the premier institutes, and obviously students here feel they're very privileged to be studying here. Campus recruitment happens very quickly. But is it the same case for their their peers in the other institutes? That's something we have to find out. Now the announcement has been made that new IITs will come up. What do you see? Do you think the same kind of infrastructure? We are here at this campus, which is so many acres, and you have the best of technology. But do you think IIT Jodhpur or anywhere else, do they have the same kind of technology and faculty?
So I don't think so. I think that even the new 8 IITs which have come up right now, they don't have the right infrastructure or the right faculty members to guide them. So rather than creating further more IITs, a better thing to do is, use the money to develop the infrastructure, get some policies which will encourage people to become professors, and thus actually make them a good institute worthy enough to be called IITs.
Absolutely, that's the mood we are picking up here. And also, The campus recruitment, it plays a very crucial part. If I remember right, last year a student who was picked up from IIT Madras got probably the highest salary in the entire country. But that might not happen in the other IITs. So why take this plunge?
So it has always been observed that the top 7 IITs, 5 or 7 IITs have been performing best in placements, whereas the new IITs that were introduced in 2009, we have observed that their recruitment is not really great. So I don't really understand the concept of introducing even 5 more new IITs without actually improving the already existing IITs.
That's what all the students here more or less feel, Preeti. They don't see the necessity for introducing new IITs when the existing ones are suffering for infrastructure and faculty.
You know, stay on with us, Pramada, because we're bringing in Mr. S.K. Das, academic research, IIT Madras, the same very college that you're picking up opinion from. Mr. Das, if you've been able to hear your students from your college, the first thing they say is, what's the point? Hundreds of seats still lying vacant across India in various IITs. You know, we can't bolster the infrastructure. We can't put great faculty there. What's the point of introducing more IITs when the same narrative is going to follow?
No, I think, you know, these two things are not mutually exclusive. I mean, you can improve always the quality of IITs, existing IITs, but you can have new IITs as well. Because you look at the other part of the story. 20 years back, hardly 2 lakhs of people were taking CBSE plus 2 examination. Today, it's 10 lakhs. So it has gone up by 5 times. It's a country which is growing. The aspirations for education is growing. So you have to keep up with that. In fact, we have made a mistake by not having an IIT between 1961 and 1994. 33 years we didn't have an IIT. The country was growing, people were growing, aspirations were growing. We didn't do that. So having one IIT in, say, every state or something like that.
But Mr. Das, by allowing the existing IITs, sir, if I may come in, by allowing the existing IITs to fall to seed, aren't we diluting the revered institution that IITs, IIMs have stood for over the years?
No, it's because, please look at this. See, just like a human being has got a childhood, you have to give the childhood to a human being, an individual. So you have to give a childhood to an institution also. I mean, you cannot say, University of Cambridge is 550 years old.
Right.
You can't compare it with
Mr. Das, stay with us. Shantanu Chaudhary has a quick point to make at this point of time. Quickly, Shantanu, then we'll go across to our reporters.
Actually, sir said that it's like you're giving a good childhood to your, but if your childhood is not, if your child is not getting a good childhood, it doesn't mean you keep on
that the child needs.
Greater nourishment, then it doesn't mean you keep on having babies. So
good point. Good point.
It's exactly the same thing. So
I hope you heard that, sir. A bright student, IIT Delhi, making that point. No point of going on to a population explosion if you cannot curtail and control what you already have. We're going to cut across to Jugal Purohit, standing by at IIM Ahmedabad, picking up reactions from there. Jugal, it's over to you.
Thank you, Preeti. 16 replica institutions have been announced in this budget, and if I may just give you a comparison, 8 such replica institutions which were there in the 11th 5-year plan today also face a deficit of teaching staff up to 40 to 45%. So the real question is, should we be preferring quantity over quality? I have with me several students from the IIM Ahmedabad, and they actually have a different stand to offer altogether. Let's just go to them and understand. Do you think it's actually a good move, or it's not a good move of actually announcing more number of such institutions?
Hi, this is Ankit. I think it's a very positive move, and we should see it in a time frame of medium to long term. It's too soon to judge an initiative, and I think it all depends on how it is followed up and what the government follows up with in terms of faculty and infrastructure. Having said that, I mean, there could have been other alternatives where money could have been spent into existing IIMs, but still I would see this as a positive move.
Okay, but does it not bother you? I mean, you guys have studied so hard to actually come here and to now realize that there are so many such institutes who will carry the tag of IIM. Does it not bother you?
IIM Ahmedabad's brand equity as such, I don't think it would be affected by a move like this. And the truth is, demand does outstrip supply. So the point is to follow up on these institutes with infrastructure, good faculty, creating a knowledge base. That's what the government should aim at. So.
But how successful do you think the government will be? Because as I just said, that what they've done in the past is not as yet inspiring confidence, and one cannot but rule out the fact that there is, after all, a limit to how much good faculty you can actually have in the country.
Hi, this is Vishnu. Well, I believe, as Ankit lightly touched upon as well, that it is too early to judge. Typically, for example, especially with respect to Management Institute, what the main infrastructure that it derives value out of is its knowledge base, and that takes a while to hone. So it is probably too early to judge and extrapolate the success of earlier such stories and mark them up against what initiatives the government plans to launch. So I would still say that as a step forward on a policy level, it seems pretty positive that the government wishes to invest in higher institutes of higher learning.
Do you not think anything better could have been done vis-a-vis investing in higher education?
So there are a number of avenues which the government could have looked at apart from flowing money into new IIMs. I mean, there are a number of IIMs which are set up previously over the past few years. The government could have considered, flowing the investment into those institutes as well. Another aspect they could have looked at is at the grassroots level itself. I mean, there are a number of issues India faces in terms of primary education, and the government could have looked at investing this amount into those initiatives as well.
And even those IIMs and IITs which have been announced, a lot of them are functioning even as on date out of temporary structures. Does it not bother you then?
I believe that any institution has to start from the front, because the thing that we are targeting at is to create a knowledge base, and the infrastructure will build up as time goes on, and the different institutions will pick up speed, but it is important that they start off right away. Okay.
Actually, none of the Indian institutes, when you talk about the world stage, ever come anywhere close in the list of top universities or top institutes. Do you think a move of this sort takes us anywhere closer on that goal of ours?
Well, we have institutions like IIM Ahmedabad which are striving to be globally competitive, and I think this move is not going to affect the established IIMs. If I talk about,
it's also going to help India achieve that.
Well, it would have been a great thing if institutions like IIM Ahmedabad was also considered, but IIM Ahmedabad being autonomous and it's striving to be globally competitive on its own, and that's the kind of direction it has taken, and I think that's a model which it will be successful with.
Okay, and as a student of IIM Ahmedabad, do you think that there is anything more that the government could have perhaps helped you? Because you already a running institution, maybe they could have done something to improve your resources and your situation.
Hi, I'm Abhishek. I think that with IMA specifically, we are an autonomous institute, so we are not exactly as reliant on government funding as a lot of the other institutes. So in terms of the knowledge base that we've built, in terms of the alumni network we have, I believe that this decision is not as pertinent to us as it maybe would have been if we were not as autonomous. So in terms of funding, I think that we are fairly autonomous. So it really
So Preeti, in stark contrast to what we saw in Chennai, people out here seeming to give the government a chance and having a positive outlook on the whole, it does not perturb them the fact that more number of IITs and IIMs will be coming up by the time they come out of this institute.
Let's cut across directly at this point of time to IIM Kolkata, where we are joined by my colleague Manogya Loewal, who's asking students there on what do they make of the finance minister's latest proposal of increasing the number of IITs, IIMs and even IIMs. It's over to you, Manogya.
Well, absolutely. Preeti, let's talk to a few students here, the scholars, on what do they feel about. Do you feel that this will actually reduce the quality of the number of students who are coming out this time?
Oh, okay. So when we talk about an IIM, the first thing that comes to our mind is the quality of education which these institutes provide. And the very basic requirement for this kind of education has to be high quality teachers and like high quality...
And what do you think about? My last question.
I think basically it's the infrastructure has to be in place first. We have the new IIMs already before the IIMs that are coming up. And we should let them settle down in terms of the infrastructure as well first before actually opening up new IIMs.
Well, settling down with the infrastructure is the priority. That's what the students have been telling us. And of course, that the number of teachers would also be required there. That needs to increase at least to the optimum quality that would be required.
Well, thank you, Manogya. I'm afraid that's all the time that we have at this point of time. My colleague Manogya Loewal picking up reactions from IIM Kolkata, Jugal Purohit, who joined us from IIM Ahmedabad. We also had the Dean of Academic Research, IIT Madras, Mr. S.K. Das. Appreciate you joining us, sir. And two very bright students in the studio with us, Shantanu Chaudhary and Navratna Singh from the Delhi IIT. Well, the question, the jury on that question is out there, whether or not we need more or do we need to invest on what we already have when it comes to the premier educational institutes of this country.